The headlines last week suggested that the DEI division at the University of Wisconsin was being shut down. And maybe that's technically true because they're not going to call it the DEI division any longer. But a whole bunch of at least conservative leaning outlets thought that meant that the University of Wisconsin caved and is removing DEI. And nothing could be further from the truth. Dan Lennington, Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, is still fighting the University of Wisconsin on this. They're still not in compliance. They lied during an audit. Dan, welcome to the show. Good to have you on the Middleton Ford Hotline.
Good morning, Vicki. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. So, not true. What are they doing? It says here, according to a Wisconsin Public Radio article that I'm looking at here, they're just going to kind of morph everything into other divisions, presumably where it's a lot harder to find.
Yeah, this is part of the diversity office that actually there was a controversy about that wasn't really reported anywhere in the media, that the vice chancellor of this division was handing out over $200,000 in lump sum awards that were unauthorized, gave bonuses to 85% of its staff, and spent most of the money on travel, training, and events, including $18,000 for massages and $14,000 for a trip to Maui. This was the diversity office that they have now decided to quote-unquote close. But as you note in the WPR article, they say that they have still over 100 employees that work in DEI at UW-Madison, that they're just moving them around, and they admit UW-Madison is not eliminating any scholarships or supports for minority students, which means they're still continuing race-based programs for students. And they're still bragging, I just checked this morning, bragging on their website that they're running a faculty diversity initiative where they're still hiring employees based on race, and this is on their website today. So the legislature, once again, has been completely bamboozled. They just voted to give $256 million in more taxpayer money to the UW-Madison, UW-Wisconsin system. And then in response to this generosity, immediately after the budget deal was signed, the ink was not even dry, they voted to have an increase to tuition. So UW-Madison is getting everything that they want. They're having very little oversight, and they're continuing to discriminate against faculty and students based on race under DEI, although now they call it inclusive excellence.
Inclusive excellence is DEI by another name. There's a few other ways they're manipulating language, but the function is still the same, race-based and other types of discrimination taking place in the name of diversity. That's what this is. So whether it's hiring persons of color, hiring people of alt sexuality, whatever that might be. And this is the University of Wisconsin system that admits fewer than 50% of students from the state of Wisconsin. I mean, and they raise tuition. And yet this is not even an institution that serves the majority of its students from Wisconsin. So it's a minority of students from Wisconsin. I guess I don't understand the legislature. It wasn't saying you better have 60% of all students from Wisconsin or else. It wasn't you better eliminate inclusive excellence, all of these illegal programs or else. It was not even pushback. They lied about the audit during the hearings on the audit, and they got $256 million plus $500 million for building projects. So I mean they're sitting in tall cotton, aren't they?
Yeah, they've got a sweet deal. I mean, they bring in about $4 billion a year. They've got a multi-billion-dollar fund called WARF that is just a slush fund of money the legislature has no interest in looking at. They get hundreds of millions of dollars from sporting events, and yet they're serving students who are primarily not from Wisconsin. Now, one of the reasons maybe it's so unaffordable to go to UW-Madison, and their rankings keep slipping every year in the polls. I mean, we're behind the University of Illinois now, if you want to compare that to anything. But it's about $31,000 or $32,000 a year to send your child to University of Wisconsin in Madison.
Wow.
When you could send your kid to UW La Crosse, which is a pretty good institution, for about $17,000 all all in, it's almost becoming twice as expensive to send your kid to UW-Madison as it is to send it to one of these outlying campuses in which, the education, frankly, might actually be better. And so we're running this sort of prestige academy. We're keeping all these, woke professors employed. And the only people who seem to be doing anything about it is the Trump administration, which is investigating one of our complaints against UW-Madison for race-based scholarships. They're also investigating UW-Madison right now for anti-Semitism, and they have cut about $12 million in DEI research funding. I think they're going to continue to cut funding to UW-Madison because the only way we're actually going to get change at UW-Madison is to have the Trump administration root out DEI, although it's in a much more difficult position for the federal government to do it than the state government, which is just a few blocks away. I don't understand why the state government cannot root out race discrimination from its own flagship university.
Yeah, I don't know why either. Why they didn't just simply say, if you are discriminating or providing preferential treatment or opportunities based on race or alternative sexuality or some category that has nothing to do with anything, you can't do it. Instead of saying we're going to get rid of DEI or whatever, don't call it DEI. Say you're no longer allowed to discriminate or provide preferential benefits, opportunities, or teach preferences like that. Or you don't get your money, but you're right. They don't do that. Now we got to wait for the Trump administration, Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, to sue them. How many times have you filed a complaint, written a letter, or actually had to go on to court to get the University of Wisconsin to comply? And they don't care. They don't care. They keep doing it. I mean, you've got a complaint filed against a race-based scholarship. What do? They announce race-based faculty hiring on their website proudly today.
Yeah, they keep on. They keep getting away with it. I mean, there's really no downside to them. Right. I mean, the first time they bamboozled the speaker's office, they said, well, we'll get rid of DEI. And so Speaker Voss and the legislature gave him $800 million in December of 2023. $700 million was to build a new engineering building. And in response to that, UW chancellors gave quotes to the media saying, nothing's closing. We're just moving people around. They said that to the press. They flaunted it. They just said nothing's really moving. We're just moving the stuff around. And they keep getting away with it. They keep moving stuff around. They keep getting more money. They keep getting money from Wisconsin taxpayers. This is I've said it before. This is a multi-billion-dollar organization. This is a $4 billion a year they're spending on all sorts of things at UW. They're gouging their students with tuition and room and board, and they're catering to people who are primarily not from Wisconsin. And so
correct. That's UW-Madison.
And their rankings, and their rankings are falling. So what are we paying for?
I don't know, but the rankings are falling, and yet $200 million last budget, $256 million more this budget. They're sitting on a $1 billion slush fund. They've got WARF. WARF isn't losing money. The athletic department isn't losing money. These are money makers, and good for them. And yet $1 billion slush fund they're still sitting on. They lost $12 million in DEI grants, but they just got $256 million more dollars from the state of Wisconsin, which was more than the last time around. And so I'm pretty sure they're not going to miss the $12 million in federal DEI grants. See, so why are they failing? The whole argument now they're raising tuition. To raise tuition is because, well, we're not competitive with other universities. Well, I mean, with that kind of money, how are you not competitive with the University of Illinois? Serious question. How are they not competitive with the University of Illinois? WARF is a juggernaut moneymaker, and I'm not sure U of I has got a WARF type thing. Why aren't we, by the way, taking advantage of the money that's generated through that entity? I don't know, but they always say it's money, 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 and yet we can't seem, with extra money to keep up with your peers. Weird.
Yeah, it's it's something we need to think about in Wisconsin. We seem to have lost a lot of momentum on the right in Wisconsin. And I mean, our public K through 12 is failing. We're spending more money every year on K through 12 education. Our scores are going down as the attendance is going down. The attendance overall at the UW system is going down. So people of Wisconsin need to see that we are on this glide path to becoming Illinois, and we're on this glide path to becoming Minnesota and Michigan. And you can see what has happened in those states. They're not thriving. Let's just say those states, and perhaps it's going to take a cataclysmic electoral blowout in Wisconsin for the voters to actually wake up. And those 1.8 million voters who voted for President Trump to decide that they actually want to show up for every single election, which they're not doing. And so, we have a lot of challenges ahead of us, and this DEI stuff is not stopping at UW-Madison because nobody's making them stop, except perhaps maybe the Trump administration.
Except that the Trump administration isn't making them stop, because the Trump administration has got, the same condition in 50 states where everyone is flipping the bird. No one's just saying, oh, okay, that's the executive order. This is the law. That's the multiple Supreme Court decisions against race-based discrimination. We're just not going to do it anymore. Instead, what they're doing is sue us. Send your investigators to us. There aren't enough. There aren't enough to do it across 50 institutions or more. There's more than 50 institutions. It's government. You've got the entire state of Wisconsin. Tony Evers has essentially said, sue us. Jill Underly in K-12 has said, sue us. The University of Wisconsin system, sue us. On the UW, though, you just blew my mind when you told me to go to UW-Madison. It's around $30,000 a year. $30,000 a year. I mean, I remember when I was in school, and admittedly, this was a long time ago. Okay, I understand. But wow, that's 3 times what it cost me to go to a private school 30 years ago. Private tuition is now, it was right around $9,000. It's now 3 times that much to go to the University of Wisconsin, a public school. It's twice as much to go to La Crosse. I'm like, what are kids getting out of this besides indoctrination into woke think?
Yeah, that's not much. And so, we're all overtaxed. We all trying to make ends meet. We're getting our property taxes are going up, sales tax going up. This money's being flooding into the Wisconsin state budget. We got constant surpluses where our legislature is taxing us more than we need, and they're not being very good stewards with our money. And signing a deal, frankly, with Tony Evers a few weeks ago where he's bragging about it. I mean, he's going around bragging about the deal he got out of the legislature. So, I don't know when these chickens are coming home to roost, but it has a pretty grim outlook here in Wisconsin.
No doubt. Dan Lennington, thanks for jumping on the program today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.